Live this evening for a pretty important topic that's close to all of our hearts and has been for many years of the NBEA and most sports, and that is coaching or teaching. And we're happy to have with us this evening from Capri, which is Mike King from Ontario joining us, and his colleague now living in Woodstock, New Brunswick, Charity Tetro. And what we want to talk about this evening, whether you're teaching or coaching, giving clinics, is what are the credentials that we should be looking at and choosing. And we probably wouldn't be having this discussion if you were teaching swimming or skating at the local rink or pool, because you couldn't do it without checking off the credentials that are needed before you went into that field of play. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for some of us, the equestrian world has always allowed us to kind of hang our shingle and teach or coach people in the equestrian world. So I think the times are changing a little bit, and we want to bring that to people's attention and try to make sure. My goal as the president of the NBEA is, for those of you that are teaching, is I want you to produce safe, sound people that are going to enjoy their sport. And we're going to enjoy teaching. We're going to produce good quality people. But I want you, the teacher, the rider, the parent of the student, to make sure that you have technically sound, qualified people. And those individuals are safe and sound, because let's remember, everyone, we're in a high-risk sport, and accidents do happen. We don't talk about it much, but we want to make sure that if we're sound in our technique, in our understanding of the sport, and we need to be protected in case accidents do happen. So that is why we chose to have this topic this evening for our Sunday chat. And I'm glad you're joining us. And I hope that you will take away with it some information and make you think about how you're doing your sport, whether you're the rider or the parent or the coach, and ask some serious questions. And when you know better, you should do better. And I've been in the sport for a long time. To give you a little bit of history, Sally Williamson was the president back in the 80s. She came from skiing, and when she took over the NBEA, she was amazed there was no certified coaches, because in skiing there were, and I had no clue we were supposed to be certified. So she said, no, you've got to get involved. You've got to be able to do your sport better. So I tipped my hat to Sally Williamson back in the 80s when I became certified, and everyone that I've been involved with, that I've taught, that wanted to be involved in the sport, I have tried to keep that culture going. So I became certified and became involved in the sport way back in the 70s, and I had great mentors. Going forward, we need to make sure that we have good mentors for our people that want to become involved in the sport. But if they're not involved in a coaching curriculum, what are you teaching and how are you teaching? And I don't care if you're recreational or you want to go to the Olympics, you need to have a curriculum to enjoy your sport, and for us to do it safely and soundly with a live creature, a 1,200-pound creature. So that's my soapbox speech for this evening. And I will turn it over to the guy that can even do it better than I do. And that is Mike King.
Thanks,
what
Deanna.
Can you tell us, Mike?
Thanks a lot, Deanna. And hi to everybody that's on the call. As Deanna introduced me, my name is Mike King. I'm a partner at Capri CMW Insurance. I've been in this horse insurance risk management environment for 28 years now, and I'm proud to be a partner with NBEA in delivery of insurance products and programs, not only in New Brunswick, but frankly in every jurisdiction across the country except for Quebec, and have done so for about 20 years. To Deanna's point, I don't think it can be stressed enough that the importance of having credential now in an environment in 2021 when scrutiny is really quite astounding. When social media can elevate somebody's reputation or destroy it in a single post, when frankly the public is very aware of environments and can bring influence upon them, we have to be ever sensitive to this notion that someone standing in the middle of the ring or in that relationship with an athlete, they have to be qualified. It's just no longer acceptable in a social in our society in Canada or indeed around the world for someone to sort of arbitrarily decide that they're an expert in the field and share that as if they have some credential. So many things that we see from a risk perspective, from an insurance perspective, from a claim perspective, tell me the credential in our sport is long overdue, as Deanna indicated. And listen, Deanna's a prophet of NCCP, the National Coach Certification Program, which is the national standard that governs over just about every amateur sport there is. We know certainly because of history that the Certified Horsemen's Association is a real presence in the horse industry, the British Horse Society, just because we're a colony of them, and other European credentials have found their way into Canada. And this conversation tonight is not about judging one of those credentials against another credential. It's more about just the notion that having a credential not only makes you a better coach to produce those better athletes. Again, to Deanna's point, and again, I'm repeating a lot of the things Deanna just said, but putting it in another context, 90% of folks are recreational riders. They simply want to enjoy being in the presence of this wonderful animal. And to do so safely, they do need some lessons. They need to be taught that horses can do unpredictable things, that they do travel or can travel at 35 miles an hour, that they can throw you off if they so choose. And as much as we all think we're fabulous riders, I've got lots of broken bones to prove that wasn't always the case. And indeed, there are environments where I lost the battle with a 1,000-pound critter. And so having a coach that is trained to not only deal with the safe sport environment, but also to look after me when I fall off and I'm a heap of bones on the ground is of most critical importance. From an insurance perspective, it's really easy for me to say to you, look, get a credential, you're going to get cheaper insurance, because that's true. There's no question that we as underwriters and we as actuaries look at the statistics of the sport in general, and in the environment in general. And we look at the vulnerability of the clients that are being taught in the sport. We look at the environment in which the sport is being taught. And it's very easy for us to discern between someone who's credentialed and someone who's not, and to make determinations and predictions about the probability of having claims that clearly weigh in favor of someone who's credentialed. It's not just about having a first aid course 25 years ago when you were a Brownie or a Scout leader. It's not about that. It's about what is your credential in the environment. And here's something else that people often forget. Because credentials exist now, because the public is becoming so aware, and because these credentials are gaining public knowledge, the reality is the courts are judging the sport based on those credentials. And without sounding too scary, the reality is that if you were involved in a claim and you were standing before the judge and you don't have a credential, you will be judged more harshly, without question, than a coach who's standing before the judge, who's made the commitment to be a professional in the sport, to do the education necessary, to actually be a professional and to have that credential in place. So it's a very practical sort of thing. This isn't about us trying to sell anything. This isn't about us sort of trying to impose upon you in your small or large business enterprise. This is just a reality check that says, if you don't have a credential, you're not acting in good moral standing, certainly with the sport. You're likely to be judged very harshly if there is a claim. Your insurer will undoubtedly give you higher premiums if they know what's going on. And although I'm going to take some wind out of somebody else's pitch in just a moment, the reality is that if you haven't advised your insurer, and assuming you have insurance, of course, on the farm, but if you haven't advised your insurer of the commercial activity that may be taking place in the barn, because it's only a couple of kids a week, or it's just on a Saturday morning, it's very small business, I get paid cash, I don't tell anybody about it. If something happens, I'm here to tell you, from an underwriting perspective, you're not going to have any coverage. We get these claims all the time in the sport, folks. I insure lots of people who are on farm policies. They have little small business enterprises at the farm. If they have a claim, the insurer is going to run for the hills. They are not going to come to your rescue. They need to have a commercial liability insurance policy in place that doesn't have to cost a lot of money to recognize that commercial enterprise as it exists on the premises. So these are very small and important bits of information that I hope you'll take to heart, because they are very important. The sport is changing. The environment is changing. There's now a coach licensing credential that's available from Equestrian Canada through and with the NBEA to deliver down into the community in New Brunswick and indeed across the country. It is achievable. It is not overly expensive. It applies to those that aspire to simply teach at home, to recreational students, all the way up through to those that aspire to participating in sanctioned events of all disciplines. This is not just an EC thing. This is about a credential that has been notified or been recognized by the Minister of Sport federally. So it's a very important time. COVID has made it very challenging for all of us. Part of the reason Deanna wanted, or the NBEA wanted to do these sort of short Zoom presentations is because, frankly, we're all looking forward to getting back to activity. So I hope you'll take some time while you have the time, or even if you don't have the time, take the time to look into these credentials more seriously to find out what you can do to elevate yourself, to elevate your business, and to use NBEA as the partner that they want to be. So now I'm going to stop. I'm going to turn it back to Deanna because she wants to talk about some of the benefits of being involved in that NBEA community, which we recognize and have recognized now for all the decades we've been in service to the membership there. There are so many membership benefits that are involved and included. And then Charity, my colleague, is going to speak to the specific insurance benefits that are part of that NBEA membership. So back to you, Deanna.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll just bring up that slide. Give me a second. You wanted, whoops, to talk about, sorry. Having technical difficulties tonight, so sorry.
Right. Well, the NBA we do in our annual general meeting report, we have over 2,300 members. And when you pay your membership, you get the $5 million liability. And that's a peace of mind that we know that a lot of it doesn't come with your own house insurance. Pardon me, but you have a horse behind your house. So for $50 for a senior membership or more, you're going to get the $5 million liability. And with the NBEA, who has a budget of roughly $150,000, we give a lot of money back to sport. So with your access to programs, we give over $3,500 to ride and drive. So you can log your hours for prizes at the end. We give over $30,000, $10,000 for dressage, eventing, and show jumping to run activities that will bring people from your backyard to the show ring. We do rider level testing. We actually pay people to get their rider levels. And more importantly, tonight, coach certification, we budget $5,000. So if you become certified as an instructor or coach, we will give you $500. We also do a lot of prep clinics in the province to help make it achievable for you to get into that time and energy to getting qualified. We also budget over $3,000 for officials training. If you want to become an official in New Brunswick, go and get the training, and we will match your receipts. And of course, we also sanction competitions. So alone in sport, we provide almost $70,000 to get people involved in their sport and help them, if they want to, move to the next level, whether it's in competition, in officiating, in coaching, or in riding. And of course, down below there with representation, I think it's important to know that the NBEA is about sport, but we know we're also about agriculture. So when they tried to close the provincial vet lab in New Brunswick, which was going to hurt all of us, we went to the government and said, look, we need to have provincial vets, not just the private vets, we need the provincial vets. So, and even during this whole COVID thing, when they wanted to close the barns, we were one of the first provinces to open stables again for teaching and for our boarders when we moved out of the lockdown to the next level. So we're there as a provincial sport office for sport, but also to help you with government issues as well. And then, of course, we do a great job, or Nancy does a great job on our call tonight, getting you with our internal communications. We have a website, we have a calendar of events, we have a monthly newsletter. You can find out coaches in your area, you can find out stable directory in your area. We have a list of clubs and, of course, our zone activities. So we try to make you, our membership, informed as much as possible. And again, if you're a member, there's actually access to discounts in the Horse and Pony or the Canadian Horse Journal. So, and one thing I'm very pleased about, we have a small budget compared to most provincial offices of $150,000, but we give a lot of money away. We have $5,000 in youth bursaries. We have coach certification. If you're a competition and you offer biosecurity, we'll pay to bring your officials in, because we know it's expensive to bring officials from Quebec and Ontario and different provinces. And education, well, education is different this year, but we're trying a lot of new technology like the Zoom, and we're trying to bring people to you, find out why we need to do vaccines, why we need to do Coggins, and bring a lot more of these seminars available to our membership, because we know New Brunswick is a big province geographically, and they can't always get to Fredericton, Moncton, and St. John. But we're hoping by bringing these seminars to you on a Sunday evening that we can better inform, because I truly believe if you're better informed, there's a less opportunity for incorrect assumption. There are many assumptions out there. And if people would come to the NBEA and ask more questions, then you would hopefully get the right information. Hear it from the horse's mouth if you can, and find out there's a reason. And a lot of those reasons fall into just good biosecurity when we want vaccinations, and just good horsemanship, that we want you to have credentials and we want you to have insurance. I don't want you to lose your house because someone fell off in your backyard and got seriously injured. I want you to teach lessons. I want you to produce good, sound horse people so that our province can thrive to be a province that produces good horse people, whether you go to a horse show or not. We have 15,000 horses in New Brunswick, 15,000. And I'd like them to be vaccinated, and I'd like them to see a farrier once in a while. I'd like them to be wormed and vaccinated, and I'd like you to take some lessons. And if we had that, we'd have a very healthy horse community in the province of New Brunswick to do our sport safely and soundly. That's what I keep telling people. So we have good, sound people in New Brunswick that can help you. And if you have got a good coach and a good horse, sky's the limit. Thank you.
Okay, Charity, just give me a second to bring that slide up for you.
Thank you, Nancy.
And there it is.
Wonderful. A lot of people wonder what the benefits of their membership are, and after hearing Deanna speak, we're just so thankful to have such a wonderful group of ladies who administer these programs and support their equine community in the province of New Brunswick. That being said, with your basic membership, you get $5 million in personal liability insurance. Now, if you have a farm policy like I do, my horses are on property. If I leave to go ride at a neighbor's house, go for a trail ride off the property, my farm policy stops at the property line. It doesn't cover me when I'm going up the road with my horse, or I'm at a show, and there is a big exposure there as well. The number one question that I generally get from parents who are calling in and asking questions about the insurance for their children who are getting into the sport is, do they need a membership? Do they need to have liability? And the number one thing I say is, are you ever going to hold that horse when your child goes to the bathroom? Are you ever going to have their friends over to go for or jump on the horse, because that's what kids do that are horse crazy? And yes, you need to have that liability insurance. And if you're a parent and there's children coming over to your home and they're going to be riding that horse regularly, or you have neighborhood kids that you decide out of the goodness of your heart to give free lessons to, $50, $60 is nothing to protect yourself with $5 million in personal liability insurance. And a lot of people don't think of it that way, as it just stops at the property line. Your property insurance doesn't necessarily cover you for an equine incident. So that $5 million in personal liability insurance can mean, like Deanna said, the simple fact of losing your home or not. As well, with that benefit of membership in your basic insurance that's included with your membership cost is the $30,000 in accidental death and dismemberment. So that protects you, in layman's terms, for loss of limb or loss of life. So if you lost a limb or were paralyzed because of an equine accident, or if the uncertainty of death happened in an equine accident, your family or beneficiaries or yourself would get that $30,000 in AD&D coverage paid out to them. Now that's huge. You can also increase that, and that includes fracture and dental. And many of us who've been riding for many years can all explain to you how many different bones that we have possibly broken over the years. And even on a bomb-proof horse, an accident can happen. So those are really excellent coverages. Two of those, the 5 million and the 30,000 AD&D, are covered by your basic policy. And that 50,000 AD&D is an additional coverage that you can purchase. Very well worth it. Think about it if you had to pay for an ambulance ride, extra medical costs on you because you had an accident. Those things can add up. There is also some add-ons that you can add on to protect yourself, for your horse and your tack. And those you can look at on the NBEA website. It's a wonderful resource for information for all of us in the province. Nancy and Deanna and your team, you've done a fantastic job, and it's easy to navigate and find that information. And it's just really good overall to make sure that you are educated in what you are protected for, or what your exposures are as an equine owner or as a participant, even if you're a parent, a grandparent that goes to shows, any association that you have with horses. You should look at what your exposures are. And note that this policy that comes with your NBEA membership does not cover any commercial activities. If anybody pays any money to get to see you or your horse, that is considered a commercial enterprise. So then you need that commercial equine liability policy, or if you're certified to coach or non-certified, we do have a coaching program. So if you're, say, lead lining your horse in a lesson program, you're not covered by the basic policy of your NBEA membership. So those are some really key things to look at. If you have any questions other than during this video, you can contact me Monday to Friday. I'm in the office and I'm available for you to take your questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Charity.
Thank you, Charity.
You're welcome.
I have one question that's come in so far, and maybe Mike can address this. When we talk about credentials in the equestrian business, our first thoughts tend to go towards those people who are teaching, coaches and instructors who are offering lessons. What do you say to people about trail ride enterprises, and what anyone off the street thinking about going for a trail ride with somebody who's got their shingle out, what should they be aware of?
Well, there's a couple of programs out there now that are coming on board, or coming online even more now, certified trail ride leaders that are actually available in the community. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know too much about those, but from a consumer perspective, I think, again, to my point earlier, the industry's changed and consumers' awareness has changed. And as much as we all want free enterprise, and as much as we all want to, particularly seasonally, take advantage of horses in the communities we visit or the communities in which we live, it is not, I don't think it's unfair for a consumer to be saying, are you insured? To somebody who's offering them a trail ride for $50 for an hour. It seems a reasonable question to me. And I would be very wary, frankly, if someone said no, or sort of you got the impression they weren't telling you the whole truth. We didn't talk about acknowledgement of risk forms yet this evening, and acknowledgement of risk forms becomes a huge part of risk management. And facilities of all stripes should be using those forms without exception. They should be using them all the time. And there's some very good forms online. We have forms available. Lawyers around the world love to share their forms with people. And we rely on those forms a lot in the insurance industry and the risk management industry, simply because they infer that there's been a conversation between the customer and the proprietor of the business to talk about those inherent risks of the environment, being on a farm, being out on the trail, but also speak specifically to the risks associated with being in proximity with a very large animal. So I'm not sure if I hit all the points here, Nancy, but I guess what I would say to them in general is consumers should and indeed are more aware now. And I want to also just put some other sort of thing that's sort of out there a lot, and that is that the insurances are horribly expensive. It's not. It's not. It's proportional to the risk. There are service suppliers now in every jurisdiction in the country that can provide affordable and accessible commercial general liability insurance to cover every possible activity that you can imagine that's related to horse industry. If people have a farm insurance policy, they can certainly reach out to those brokers and ask them if they have a resource for it. We're here as a resource, obviously, we're in that business, but there's really no excuse for someone to say that it's too expensive. If the insurance premium of $500 or $1,000 is too expensive, you're not in business. I would hope that you're generating sufficient income to pay rudimentary expenses in your enterprise. So that's sort of my answer, much as it was.
Oh, that's helpful. Thank you. I don't have any other questions coming through chat or comments at this point. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Deanna, before we wrap up this evening?
No, besides just thanking Mike and Charity for their expertise and encouraging our members or non-members, if they have more questions, please come to good sources to answer your questions, whether they're regarding your existing operations and how you can get commercial liability, or if you want some more information on how to get involved in the coaching program, English or Western. We'd certainly like to bring you into the program. We budget a lot of money to help people, not discourage them, to get involved, get a mentor, and start enjoying what you love to do, which is to teach people to ride a horse. But again, do it safely and soundly, and make sure you're well protected. And for those of you that are riding or parents, you need to ask more questions. Like Mike said, if they're not proudly displaying they can be certified, but they need to make sure that they're paying their yearly liability insurance, and you need to sign waivers. And so I do put some onuses on the riders and the parents that you need to ask more questions. And like I said early on, I think because you've been involved in other sports that have been happening at soccer fields and in skating rinks and swimming pools that are owned by the city or town, they are all protected. They have all the forms. But unfortunately, we have good horse-loving people that decide to teach someone behind their house, and they haven't thought about that. And they haven't done the So I want the horse owner to be protected, the horse teacher, the coach, and I want the parent, student to make sure that everyone's asking the right questions so that we can enjoy our sport that we love to do. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And if it sounds a bit shaky, then try to get it from a source that's a bit more reliable, that has a bit more of the bigger picture in place. But I thank you for tuning in, and hope we've answered some of your questions. If not, please reach out to Mike, Charity, or myself, and we will certainly try to find the information that you need. And I enjoy you to and encourage you to join the community of instructors and coaches and enjoy what you want to do in a safe environment. So good night, and thanks for joining us on our Sunday evening chat.